Hi, everyone. Marigold here, and I am actually pretty excited to take a look at AutoCrit. I was inside of the Discord and I was going through some of the stuff with Tapa's Discord and looking at the AIWC and a couple of other Discords that I'm a member of, some of the Discord servers. And I kept seeing AutoCrit, and I was pretty sure that I'd taken a look at this several years back, but I really couldn't remember the ins and outs of it. I just figured it was going to be similar to maybe Pro Writing Aid. But when I actually went in to take a look at a few of the videos, I was really intrigued. And then I asked a couple of people what they thought of the program. And one of the authors of a serialized platform that I write for, she let me know that she had just purchased the lifetime membership. And I thought, oh, okay, let me take a look. I wasn't sure if the lifetime membership was going to be worth it, but the more I looked at what it offered, I kept thinking, okay, it's a lifetime membership. I pay it once, don't have to pay it again. So I thought, okay, I'll take a gamble. I'm actually glad I did. Let me show you the information that I pulled in. Now, I've only looked at this once, and I've only pulled the analysis on one body of work, which was a body of work that I write for another serialized platform. And I thought it'd be interesting to pull up a body of work that I have actually used some of my pre AI writing in, and then I actually finished the body of work using some AI generated content. Now, this is my Mary Tudor series, and it is the first installment of four. And I originally was going to release one of the 4, but then I thought, I think I wanna wait until all 4 segments are done, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna release it as 4 novellas that are between 40 and 50,000 words each, or if I wanna release it as 2 books, or maybe put it up on a serialized platform. I haven't made that decision yet, so I'm just holding on to the whole body of work, and I do apologize. I'm still getting over that cold, some COVID going on in my household. So bear with me. If I cough, I apologize. I've been battling this for about 3 weeks now. So I am so over it and so ready for it to go away. But I wanted to show you some of the things that I found really interesting about the program. Again, I've only been in it for about an hour or so. So I don't really know the ins and outs of the tool very well. I am not one to really watch videos frequently, so I will just point and click and see where it takes me. And one of the places that it took me was actually, I tried the upload file multiple times, and for whatever reason, that does not work for me inside of AutoCrit. I don't know if it's just the size of my files, but after doing some digging, I did find that I can upload up to 100,000 words. Once you go above 100,000, that's where you begin to have issues. So I didn't understand why when I loaded Dark Waters, and that's only 58,000 words, that one I couldn't upload as a file either. I had to start with a blank document. So I'm going to do the same thing with my Mary Tudor docket book for One Obsession. Again, I tried to do it with the upload. It just would not upload for me, and it's a docx, which is one of the files that AutoCrit allows me to upload. So the workaround that I found was to pull up a blank document. So after I pull up the blank document, all I did was take my document here and I highlighted everything from, I'd say, I did everything from chapter 1. I think there's 25 chapters in this one. This installment is only about 41,000 words, but I'm gonna finish fleshing out a little bit more of this. I'm gonna go back over it again. So I'm probably going to be layering it, I'd say, with another 8 to maybe 12,000 words whenever I'm finished with it. So it will be sitting closer to that 50,000 word mark whenever I'm done. But all I did was come in and copy this content, and then I just pasted my information here. Now, one of the things that I found that's a little bit mechanical is that it didn't automatically read my chapters. And I do have my chapters set in my Word document to reflect it being a specific header for chapters. So I will have to play with that. But the workaround that I found was to actually highlight chapter, and then I have to manually add and say to save it. Now, I have to do the same thing for all 25 chapters. Again, I like to use the control find. It allows me to arrow through, find the next chapter. And like I said, I couldn't find any other way to make this work for me other than doing this. And you definitely need to break up your chapters so that you can actually do this little analysis right here. I've not worked with any of these other areas here, the pacing and momentum. I've not worked with the dialogue, the strong writing, the word choice, repetition, readability. I've not worked with any of that, but I know that all of that is inside of the analysis from what I did with Dark Waters earlier. So I'm curious to see what kind of information maybe the system is going to pull up about my Mary Tudor docket book. And I found it really interesting that it was pulling up all kinds of stuff on Dark Waters about the actual dialogue. It compared it to other fiction that my body of work may compare to. And I liked that, but I was really amazed that it actually pulled up the summaries of, say, the specific chapter at a time. So I found that rather interesting. And it'll also do an overall summary of your body of work too. So I definitely want to show that content. And again, I apologize if I keep clearing my throat. Again, I'm just getting over something. So you may hear me taking a little break here and there and grabbing my tea, which I have sitting right next to me. I don't know what you guys drink, but I drink PG Tips, or I will sometimes drink like a chai tea, or I will drink English breakfast. So those are like my 3 go-tos, but my top 2 would have to be PG Tips, and then, of course, any type of English breakfast or Irish breakfast. So if y'all are a tea drinker, or if you drink a specific type of coffee, be sure to mention that in the comments section. Let me know what you're drinking whenever you're working on a body of work. Or does that change when you are editing versus fleshing out a body of work? Me, I'm such a creature of habit that I stay with the same content over and over again. I am on chapter 12. As I said, I am about 24, 25 chapters in this body of work. I am moving through this, just highlighting these so that I can assign chapters. And once I get done with that, I'll be able to show you more information. Now, one of the things that I found interesting is that some people are actually using this program to help them with maybe their plot holes or discrepancies, or to tighten their dialogue. And when I was listening to that conversation, I was really curious as to how this system was helping individuals with that. Now, could I go in and do some of the information that this system does? Could I go into maybe Chat GPT-4 or even Claude and run some of these reports or in like little chunks? Yeah, I could, but I started thinking about how long it would have actually taken me to do this kind of work. And I started thinking, you know what? I think it would take me a really long time to actually go through and take each part of my book, chapter by chapter, and feed it into the system like an LLM chat, and then ask the same questions that I can get answered here with just a single push of the button. Let's see, we are getting a little bit closer here, walking and chewing gum. Might even fast forward through this. Who knows? It's going to be one of those days. Oops, I think I need to go back one. There, to 23. Might have to make sure that I actually added all of these chapters, right? I could have loaded these before I started, but I wanted to show you guys the process. I thought it might be interesting for all of y'all to see. Now, again, it is pretty manual. And is that a great thing? Not necessarily, but hey, it worked, right? So I guess I'm okay with that. So let's look at my chapter sizes. It actually gives me chapter count for my words. So those are pretty good. Chapter two is a little bit long, but not a biggie. I do have a shorter chapter here on 18 and 19. I could flesh those out more. And I typically like to have my bodies of work. If I'm going to publish this as an ebook, then I'm not too worried about my chapter word counts. But if I'm actually going to have this on, say, a serialized platform where readers have to use credits or tokens to be able to pay to unlock a chapter, then I would want to make sure that my chapters are at least 1,200 words and up if I'm on Radish, if I'm on Tapas, or on some of the others, then I want to make sure that I was at about 1,500 words and up. If I am on, say, Kindle Vella, I could go as low as 600 words. And I don't really advise that. I advise to have longer chapters. I think the minimum that I would want to have on one of those platforms would be the 1,200 to 1,500 words. This one is a fast paced body of work, and there are multiple POVs. So that's another reason why some of these are, I'd say, between 1,200 and 2,000 words, with a few exception of a few shorter chapters. And I do that because I'm moving between about 5 or 6 different POVs because this is a psychological thriller. So let me show you what I was able to uncover here. I'm going to click on the analysis and notice how it opened up this information down here. I'm going to click on the fiction analyzer. At some point, we're going to do the summary report and then the combined report as well. But let's take a look at the fiction. And it's letting me know that it may take several minutes. I'm going to analyze all chapters. Now, I haven't made any changes, so I didn't have to ask it to analyze any of the changed chapters because what is actually where I'm at within this specific body of work. Now, I found it interesting that it is going in, looking at each chapter individually, and it's breaking it down to give a synopsis of what that specific chapter is about. So let's take a look. We know that we have 4 minutes remaining on this analysis, and there are 25 chapters. Under the synopsis, Chapter one of the book opens with Mary Tudor, the protagonist, working on a sculpting project in her basement studio. That is spot on. That is exactly what's happening. She's interrupted by the sound of a bell on her pet kitten's collar and realizes that her caregiver, John Foster, has entered the room, or at least she thinks so. John had given her the kitten as a companion to help chase away the shadows and nightmares that haunt Mary due to her parents' death. That is a key point that I make within the first opening pages of Mary, or that was what I used to call it, of One Obsession. As Mary continues sculpting, John searches for his present, which he always manages to find every year. So they have this nice light banter. However, something feels off to Mary when John enters the studio. His movements sound really different. The cane remains silent instead of tapping the floor. So all of this is spot on. And it even picked up that the man inside of her studio is singing the lyrics to Pop Goes the Weasel. So I thought, okay, that's really interesting. Now, it continues to state that the chapter ends with the man revealing that John's fate rests in Mary's hand and that he's been taken captive. And that kinda leaves her kind of feeling like her world's been turned upside down, and then the man leaves abruptly. All of that is spot on for this chapter. Now, it does state that throughout this chapter, it is written from Mary's point of view as we experience her fear and confusion over these strange events unfolding before her eyes. Now, interestingly, that it chose to use before her eyes because Mary is blind. So she has vision impairment. She cannot even see shadows, nothing. And so she's down in the basement. She has to really rely on all of her other senses because of that vision impairment. So let's go and look at the conflict. The conflicts that it pulled were that Mary's frustration, it's her frustration with the kitten, Tinker, who is interrupting her sculpting. She has an internal conflict of not having time for distractions, wanting to focus on her work. The conflict between Mary's desire for solitude and John's interruption, because she thinks he's searching for the present. So all of this is spot on. And again, this definitely reflects some of the information in that top part. Let's take a look at the characters. So here the characters are John Tudor, or Mary Tudor, John Foster, Tinker Bell, the kitten given to Mary. Now, interestingly enough, Tinker Bell is mentioned here, but it wasn't actually Tinker Bell. It was her collar that the stranger had. And the stranger is unknown to Mary at this time. He is revealed in later chapters, but in the beginning, she does not know who he is. So it's interesting that the AI behind AutoCrit was pulling the information and is actually showing it in real time with the chapter. Let's see, internal motive or role. We are given that for all of the characters, so that's cool. And let's look at the world building. We have a general geography. It's in a manor, the basement studio. There's a stone platform. Let's see, there's mention of a kitten named Tinkerbell who roams. There's the scent of vanilla bean from John's pipe. Let's see, resources, clay, John's sandalwood cologne. And then we go into the general culture and conflicts. So this is all pretty cool. And I have to tell you, I was really amazed that it's pulling up information like this. If I were to go in and ask questions and have, say, Chat GPT-4 or even Claude pull this information for me, man, it would probably take me hours to do what this system is doing in what, 5 to 7 minutes? It is just amazing. By the time I finish reading this, I probably by the time I finish reading chapter 1, the whole thing's going to be analyzed. So I think that's pretty cool. So let's take a look. Possible contradictions. We have 6 of them to take a look at. Now, one of the things that I found with the contradictions is that I'm glad that it actually pulls them up, but just because it pulls it up as a contradiction does not mean that it is actually something negative to your story, but you definitely want to take a look at it. It may be something that maybe kicks off in a chapter that hasn't been fully explored yet, but it will be explored in later chapters. And then the resolution to whatever that event is will occur later on. But this kind of gives you a quick look at maybe some of your items in your book that might contradict each other. Like in the beginning, she's frustrated with her kitten and for the cat's not being stealthy. Let's see, she refers to Tinkerbell as a four-legged little one and cute hairball, and that it seems, you know, that she's contradicting herself about her annoyance, which in this regard, I'm okay with that because she can still be annoyed and call the kitten these cute little endearments. So again, looking at these, I'm okay with this. Now, it even picks up that she loves John Foster like a father and credits him for never asking anything of her except for her affection, or he doesn't demand anything that she's not willing to give to him. And because she lost her parents at such a young age, he stepped into that role of being a parent because she was in single digits when her parents died. So let's see the timeline analysis. It gives us points, and it says this analysis provides key plot elements that move the story forward without including any additional categories or those interpretations beyond the timeline analysis. This is great. I love that it's doing this for me. Now, it also has foreshadowing and it shows me how it's foreshadowing. And the category underneath that it's showing up for this foreshadowing is character development. So it's really pinpointing and hitting my characters and developing them. And that is actually what I was doing in chapter 1. Now, plot thread tracking. This is great. I keep a spreadsheet and Word documents that track some of this information. So it's actually pretty cool to see that it is doing the same thing here that I do in my Word documents and my spreadsheets when it comes to plot thread tracking. Now, why is this important? Because if you open up a thread and you forget about that thread and then you forget to close it, you know what? One of your readers is going to see that, or your acquisition editor, or your editor who's editing your book is going to catch that. And you definitely want to catch it before it goes and before it's released. So it's cool to see that it's tracking my plot threads. I love that. The genre analysis. Based on the excerpt provided, the genre that best describes this is a psychological thriller. Spot on, because that's exactly what this is. And it talks about the tension and suspense and how it's built throughout as Mary finds herself in dangerous situations with an unknown intruder. Now, keep in mind, this is all just for chapter 1. And it does it for chapter 2. This is Detective Jackson's Maxwell's chapter, and this is from his POV. And now it's showing the synopsis for that chapter. I think it is just crazy that it's giving me this information. Now, keep in mind that it gave me all this information on all 25 chapters, and we're talking, what was it, 42,000 words that I dumped in here. And that's all that I dumped in here. And it's actually, it took the system 5 minutes and 52 seconds to process this. How crazy is that? Now, if you're looking at the full season or full book of this, the 42,000 words that I plugged in here, that's only the first fourth of that book or that season or that installment. So let's take a look. So we have our conflicts, we have the characters who are listed in here, and again, we have world building, we have our contradictions, things that we need to take a look at and make sure that we don't have something that might interrupt our story flow. And just because it's a contradiction does not mean that it's something that's bad. It just means that you need to make sure that there's a reason for wording it the way that you have. Again, there's my analysis, my foreshadowing. Take a look at this bar over here. My goodness, we go all the way down to the bottom. And yeah, it's suspense thriller for this chapter. So that is so crazy. Possible contradictions in this chapter. There are no there's nothing that was being contradicting one point to another, which is actually interesting. There aren't any inconsistent character actions, and there aren't any events found that might contradict each other. So that's interesting. So let's take a look here. The genre analysis for chapter 24 is thriller and suspense. So it's interesting that some of the chapters are hitting thriller suspense, which doesn't really surprise me because this is a psychological thriller, and your psychological thrillers also have thriller and suspense to them, and maybe even some mystery. So that actually, as an author, if I wasn't really sure what kind of KDP keywords to use or categories to use, or if I was going to go wide and maybe use Draft to Digital or Apple Direct, Barnes and Noble, if I were to use any of those vendors or distributors or publishers, however you want to word them, then I would actually be able to look at these chapters and get a clear understanding of maybe what was in those chapters. And maybe it could help me decide which categories I want to use. See, here again, it's a thriller suspense. And again, it is a psychological thriller, but I find it interesting. Now it's a crime thriller because if I'm not mistaken here, I think this is where a murder is committed. So again, it's interesting to see how the system is looking at the content. Now, I also want to show you, in addition to this, I can't do the whole document. I can't save it as one whole document unless I can. No, I think that's the save for the whole system. If I click save here, I could take this, but I'd have to save each chapter individually. So I can save by clicking the little save button here, and it would only save just the synopsis because each one of these have their own little save button. But per chapter, I can do all of the things under chapter 1 with this click. But then if I wanted to have chapter 2, then I would actually have to copy here, and then I'd have to transfer what I copied into a Word document, which would mean that I'd have to click the little copy 25 times to get all of them. So they don't have one main way to download all of these. So I might send a little request and tell them, hey, that'd be a really nice option. But that is a topic for a different video. So let's go ahead and close this out because now I want to take a look at additional, what is this? Let's see what this does. I don't see that it has anything here. We'll just close that. Unless it's trying to do something. So let's go in. We're under fiction, but let's do the summary report this time. Let's see what the summary report gives us. And let me tell all of you, I haven't even touched anything else within this body of work to take a look at all the other functions that I can play with. So let's take a look. So my word count, it's showing about 41,000 words, and it is letting me know that my AutoCrit score, it's letting me know that it's looking at it as general fiction, and it's going to compare my body of work to others within the general fiction field or range. Now it is telling me that I have a 91.6 overall score. It says that it's an amazing score. It's an excellent overall score in the line. It's in line with bestseller expectations. Even a diamond must be polished, however, if it is to dazzle. So there are still areas that I can improve, like some repetition. There might be some repetition that I can take a look at because my score there is an 86.9. And I don't know about you, but since I'm above 90 on all these, maybe I want to look here and like shove that up higher. I don't know. I'm a little competitive that way. So here it says, based on your score, do you find yourself saying the same thing over and over again? Your work scored lowest in our repetition category. This category, as the name suggests, focuses on the frequency and repetition. Now, that is an area that I have to look at in my writing because I can be really descriptive. And one of the things that I do tend to do that can be an area that my editor will always point out to me is that I can have echoes. And an echo is when I might actually show something in real time action packed, either dialogue or within my narrative with very action based wording and description. But then I follow up that nice scene that is showing. I might follow it up with a sentence that basically just tells the reader exactly what happened right above that was showing. I will tell it in maybe a single sentence. And those are the areas that I need to kill. Now, I try to kill all of those as an author, and as you can see, I do have room for improvement there. Now, is a score of 86.9 horrible? No, it's a pretty good score. Overall, I have a 91.6, but it is showing me areas where I can improve on this body of work. Now let's take a look at the pacing. It's telling me my pacing is snappy. Less than 5% of my paragraphs are being flagged. So 5% is not bad at all. Take a look at that, guys. So I don't really have a lot of slow paced wording in my books. I tend to write a very fast moving body of work. I use a lot of shorter sentences, not exactly choppy, but they are short and punchy. I tend to stay away from really long, winding sentences because I find in my thrillers and dark mafias, and even in the alien romance or in the PNR for paranormal shifter romance books, I find that having some of those more shorter sentences and maybe some medium and very few long, winding sentences tends to work better, at least for what I like to write in. Now, it does let me know, and this does not surprise me, the average words per paragraph under the general fiction, it is usually 31.1. My average is 22.6. And again, that is a stylistic choice. I specifically write smaller sentences. They are short, choppy, not necessarily choppy, but punchy, and they can be very to the point. They are lean and concise. So let's take a look at paragraphs by word count. And my word count, I have 0 to 25 words. So my paragraphs, I have 1,150 of them that fall under this range. So this is actually cool to take a look at. And if you see, I'm not doing any Virginia Woolf here because I don't have any paragraphs that are 100 words plus, but I do have 10 of them that are 75 to 99 words. And I'm willing to bet that's probably either a flashback or maybe a paragraph that has some dialogue thrown into some maybe dialogue tags that are part of the actual paragraph that can make for some long sentences. But if you notice, for the most part, my word count can be really smaller words. They are words that are quick and easy to roll off of the tongue and easy to read and look at. Now, take a look at this report. Let's see what that does, and hopefully I can go back to the summary. So this report lets me see how many, and it breaks it down further, and it breaks it down. That's pretty cool. Man, I'm going to really have to dig into some of these. I think it's really cool. Let's go back into the summary because I want to look at some more of those. Sorry about that, guys. I'm a clicker. I just have to click on it because I don't know what's going to be there. This is how I learn. So here I am. I'm still at the 91.6. So let's scroll down. And we were at the words. Now let's look at the dialogue. Dialogue has an impact. It says that it can make or break your body of work. And I'm at a 92.4. So, sentences with dialogue, the standard is usually 27.8. I'm at 33.2. And I do tend to have a lot of dialogue within my bodies of work because I like for my dialogue to show the action. And because I come at my writing with a background in script writing, and that's what my MFA is script writing, I tend to really like to use dialogue. So I do tend to take a look at that. Now let's take a look. In usual books, in general fiction, there's a total of 347 uses of dialogue tag. If you notice, I use fewer of those. And that's because I tend to like to use meatier dialogue tags rather than a he said, she said. I like to really slim that down. Now, here under others, I score higher than what the general fiction does. But if you look at the he said, she said, or asked, the general is 254 and I'm at 80 because I tend to not like to use that. I will use it when I need it. And one of the things that you have to consider is how will what you wrote sound when when you have a narrator? Is it clear who is speaking? And that's one of the reasons why you might see a lot of he said, she said, but I tend to use dialogue tags that are meatier that still make it clear who's speaking. Let's see, adverbs. Oh, wow, I'm right on tone there for them. And strong writing, I'm at a 91.5. and it's letting me know that I have showing versus telling. It looks at showing versus telling, filter words or filler words. It looks at passive phrasing, tense consistency, cliches, redundancy. So my adverbs are lower. My showing versus telling, I definitely so it's showing here, and keep in mind my dialogue was higher. So I show a lot with my dialogue, not necessarily as much inside of my narration. My narration has a lot of description in it, but that may be where it is balancing out. And let's see, filter or filler words. This is the general norm. This is my count. Passive phrasing. So passive voice, there's usually about 277 occurrences. I only have 93. That is something that my publisher and a couple of my publishers and definitely some of my editors have just drilled into my head. So let's see, helps you spot shifts in tense. And so I write in past tense. So all of my narration is in past tense, but all of my dialogue is in present tense. So this right here is not unusual to see when you write past tense, but your dialogue is in present. Number of cliches. So I have a few extra cliches in there. I might want to look at that and make sure that I can pinpoint which cliches I have, especially since I'm over the average norm. And number of redundancies. There's usually 10. I'm at a 5. Now, I do try to find those repeat words where I might have talk or see or kneeling all on the same page, like multiple times on the same page. I try and cut those out. I really definitely look for repeat words when I'm doing some of my final pass through. Word choices. Here are my power words. So that's interesting. Your word choice category includes a variety of reporting on power words. So it's taking a look at my use of anger, encourage, energetic, fear, forbidden, love, greed. So it's taking a look at those. Now, because I have 133 instances of fear, some of these I may want to do a control find on and take a look at how I'm using them and see if there's another way to say what in the body of work with the word fear or even encourage or love. Point of view, I have first person, second person, and third. Now, why do I have 16% here as a first person? That is more than likely taking a look at some of the dialogue, but it's also probably taking a look at the internal thoughts because your internal thoughts are going to be in first person. And then second person is interesting, but my second person is probably going to be the killer who does speak a little bit in second person often, and that was by intentional use. And then 73% of my point of view is going to be third person, which actually it should be because that's what I've written this book in. Now, my initial pronouns and names. So you notice that I have a lower than average because I really don't like to abuse a name or a pronoun. Sentence starters. And here it talks about watch out for starting too many sentences with a conjunction. About 11.2% is pretty prevalent or the average. I'm right at 6.5%, so I'm doing well there. Generic descriptions. 306 is the norm. My count is 146, and that's because my editor drilled down in my head every time I used a stock gesture. I swear I would get these notes that said, wow, what else can your character's eyes do? Wow, how else can your characters stand? What else can your characters do except using their eyes to look at something? I've had a lot of fun with my different editors when editing bodies of work in the past. And I guess some of that stuff stayed in my head. Now, repetition. Let's talk repetition. Looking for excessive use of the same words. Man, I try and do this. I try to scrub through it, And let me tell you, Cece is the funniest when we're looking at manuscripts, and I might look at something that she's doing and doing a final read on it, and she'll be looking at something of mine. Man, both of us are thinking, okay, did I kill as many repeat words as I can? It just becomes a contest. And let me tell you, that woman can really scrub a manuscript. But we'll go back and forth. And if we happen to see the same word on the page two or three, four times, the bold or highlighter comes out and you start seeing them it repetitively highlighted in like yellow or another color just so that it catches our eye because it's amazing. If you have 100,000 word manuscript, you don't realize how many times you might repeat the same word on a page, especially a word that the reader might really latch on to. I think I used the word plethora a few times, and I used it multiple times on one page, and not only did Cece catch that, but a couple of beta readers were like, "What is the deal with this new word? I think you need that on your kill list." So, plethora went on my kill list because I think I used it, like, 3 times on the same page, but it was a word that really stood out, so make sure you're paying attention to that. So my word frequency that shows you some of my word frequencies, which it's not a surprise because it is Mary's name, Maxwell, it's Marsh, and Detective John Zorich. So all of these don't surprise me. Now let's look at the readability. Now, readability tests are they measure the ease of comprehension of the written text. So let's take a look at it. I'm actually pretty spot on, which is pretty cool. I have an 83. Now, that'd probably come down if I were to maybe take a look at some of the words that maybe made. I think I have a few words in here because it is a thriller that might have more of a scientific name to them. And by doing that, it may have bumped up the readability stats on this. But overall, this is pretty cool, guys. I'm totally impressed by what this tool does. I don't know about you, but yeah, I am totally impressed. So let's take a look. Now, if I click here, what is it going to do? Okay, it takes me back. Let me tell you guys, I'm a clicker. I just want to click and see where it takes me. Okay, so let's look at the combination report and see what that gives us. And again, I'm barely touching just the tip of the iceberg here, guys. So here it's showing my adverbs, generic descriptions, and it's telling me that I have too many. And it says show none, show all, show the overused. Oh, look, that's pretty cool. It'll highlight them. And oh, Cece would love this. She's gonna tell me, "Before you send that manuscript, can you please send it through AutoCrit?" I can hear her now. Let's see, will this one be blue or red? Same thing. It'd be cool if it gave different colors, wouldn't it, guys? If I could assign the colors, that would be really cool. Now, remove about 162 adverbs. I could remove 16 generic descriptions. I could remove 3 more passive, and I could remove 4 more or spice up or enhance maybe 40 different areas in the book, and I could kill 81 more of these. Let's see. Then I do like to use the word then. And let's take a look at sentence starters. I might need to take this off. Let's see, to be able to take a look at what that pulls up, because I'm really not sure. So let's show none of the others. Okay, sentence starters. Okay, but still, definitely those are words that I could kill and actually make my content stronger. Overall, what do I think about this? I like it. Now, take a look at this. I have but right here. I started another paragraph with but. So this kind of gives me an idea. And but so yeah, it's going to actually show me what I am doing consistently that I may not be aware of. Is this a great tool? Yes. I have to tell you guys, this is like Marigold approved, man. I cannot wait to put all my other manuscripts in here and play with it. And I can definitely see how this could help me, not necessarily when I'm doing revisions or heavy revisions, but I could see it helping me when I am scrubbing down and I'm maybe about halfway through the full editing process. This will help me do some laser focus on some of the things that I need to do to make my body of work shine. Right now, am I satisfied with the score I have? Yeah, I think I have a really good score. But with what this is giving me, my gosh, I could really enhance this. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know your thoughts on AutoCrit. So far, I really like it. I don't know any of the other functions right now, but I definitely want to learn more about it. So I will be doing a whole lot more clicking and taking a look at some of the content here because, yeah, I am a sold believer. I actually what I'm seeing. I don't want this to be a huge, long video, so I am going to end this session right here. But I do want to ask if you enjoyed this video and want to see other videos like this that might cover other programs similar to AutoCrit or even Grammarly or Pro Writing Aid or other programs like that, let me know. Drop a line in the AIWC YouTube channel. Leave me a comment, a note, go into Discord. Leave a message in Discord, even. Let us know what you might want us to cover next. And if you enjoyed today's session, be sure to like it, hit that share button, and definitely set up notifications so that you don't miss sessions like this that's pretty impromptu. And don't forget to subscribe. Marigold out. Thanks, guys.